checkout tracking by the NPD group brings you a receipt collecting system that gathers data anonymously through technology we created, providing your businesses with answers.
So our next speaker is Bob from Google. I'm sure you probably heard in the news yesterday that sort of Google has sort of changed its name to sort of Alphabet or something. What you may not have heard in breaking news this morning, in response, Microsoft is now changed its company name to Numbers, and I think Apple is changing itself to Colors. That was my joke. You're supposed to know. If you have the greatest game in the world and nobody knows about it, it's just the greatest game in the world that nobody knows about. Content is king, but sort of distribution is God. You know, just having a great game is just a ticket to get into the thing. But in order to be able to make money, you need to let people know you have the greatest game in the world. So to tell us all about how to succeed on Google Play, Bob, come on up.
Thanks, Dick.
This mic may be better than that one.
All right. Thank you for the strong response. Cool. So, hey, as Nick said, my name is Bob Meese. I'm the head of games business development for Google Play. And so today, just going to quickly cover some of the high-level trends for Android and Google Play, and then focus on a lot of our newest features, really clustered around pre-launch activities. It's an important period for developers, and then for user acquisition. And so here, some of these are, you have seen these before, but they're important numbers. And so for us, there are now more than 1 billion monthly active users on Android, with more than 80% of smartphone sales in the last year being Android devices, and more than 600 million people getting an Android smartphone for the first time last year. And so if you have been under a rock for the last little while, Android is big and you should develop it for it. Combining that with the gaming opportunity, so of those people, 3 in 4 Android users are playing games. And so when you combine the large install base of 1 billion plus monthly actives with 3 in 4 of those people playing games, you end up with the biggest platform of gamers ever. And then finally, in this intro section, we announced earlier this year that we had paid out $7 billion over to developers over the previous 12 months. And so there is a clear commercial opportunity on the platform. And so here's the kind of the meat of the presentation. So as I mentioned, to focus on a lot of our newer announcements, really clustered around 2 primary areas. And so on your left here, pre-launch, and so giving you guys an update on beta testing, on pre-registration, and on Cloud Test Lab. And then going through on user acquisition, focusing on Play Store experiments, on search ads on Play, and on our conversion funnel. So first on beta testing, so it's games. The launches are getting bigger and bigger, and there's actually fewer of them in some ways. Where, for example, Kabam has come out and said in 2014 they launched 12 games. In 2015 they said we're not going to launch 12, we're going to launch 4. And so when you're putting more of your eggs in fewer baskets, you definitely need to make sure that you're doing well with that. And so beta testing and testing overall is becoming a bigger focus for developers. And so we're responding to that with more and more features. For us, when you look at beta testing, so this is a feature that's been available for more than 2 years. But for this, it's the beta testing as it has existed has been more of a private focus, invite-only groups that have been optimized for communication channels, and so suppressing the communication channels that you don't want to have happen. And so during the beta period, players cannot rate or review your game, but optimizing the channels that you want to encourage, and so the connection between players and developer. And so the historic beta testing feature has used Google Groups as a way for developers to communicate with their players back and forth. And then we have sometimes referred to beta testing as alpha and beta, and so you can have 2 different channels. You can have 2 versions of your game live at the same time, alpha and beta. Here's the excuse me, the Vector Unit guys who have been a great partner to us, and just talking about how the Google Play beta testing feature has become a core part of their workflow. For these guys, you should also check out that Matt Small had done a blog post with Gama Sutra on their experience with Google Play beta testing, and so I encourage you guys to all check that out because I don't want you to completely check that out right now. Just a quick summary of what he talked about was being very intentional about choosing your audience. I mentioned that we allow both alpha and beta testing. What they found was that their alpha testing tended not to really be stable builds of the game, and it tended to be very much a friends and family build, versus the beta version of their game tended to be a much larger population of people. They also said to set expectations early, both in terms of the stability of that game. If you have something that you feel is not stable, you are setting first impressions of the game, and so it's really important to have an accurate representation of what's going on. And so setting expectations both in terms of stability as well as the feedback process overall. And so really encourage that community to provide feedback to you. And then really, finally here, expecting and encouraging criticism. Just letting your beta testers know, just don't let them sign up and just like be very passive about it. Encourage them to respond. When people do respond to you, reply back very quickly, and even thank them for critical feedback whenever it's helpful to you. But with that, this is the beta testing we've had for the last several years. 2 weeks ago, we announced an extension to this program because beta testing, for Vector Unit, the existing product worked very well with their workflow. However, it did use Google Groups. It doesn't work best for every person. And so 2 weeks ago, we announced an extension to this with a new open and closed beta testing. And so the closed version of this new feature is email keyed, such that someone can, if they just get an email, they can sign up for the beta program, the closed beta in that way, and then they'll be notified immediately through email when they're able to join that beta. And then similarly, there's an open beta as well too, which is not keyed on email at all. It's just a one-click process. And so that's something where to be able to have a beta that's not just people that you know, but a large group of people, you will have that option through the beta testing expansion that we have now. You will, however, be able to limit the total number of players in that open beta in case that's something that's important to you. Extending into pre-launch, so there are those friends and family who will play your game in whatever state it's in. We believe, though, that there's developers who have a much larger base of fans who would love to play your game as soon as it's kind of fully baked and ready for hard launch, and that's where pre-registration comes in. Pre-registration is a way to magnify the launch of your game, and it's something that for us with Google Play, we have an important part of our business in Asia, and we've noticed that pre-registration has been a common feature and a popular feature in Asia for some time. And so here's just a quick example of two developers doing pre-registration in their games. And so on your left here is a small Korean developer offering pre-registration, a simple $10 in-app item reward for pre-registering for the game. And on the right here is Konami's Power Pro Baseball. And one thing that you may notice on the bottom right here is that there are these tiers for 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, and 100,000 total pre-registrants. And so you can see that there are a progressive number of in-app items that are rewarded to those pre-registrants on the basis of getting that threshold of people. And so there's an implicit incentive to refer your friends into that program. And so when we think about pre-registration, we think about several different tiers. And so you can start from the most simplistic or basic. And so the most basic form of pre-registration is allowing somebody to be notified, to register and be notified when the game is launched, and then also to have some type of reward for pre-registering. And so that's the most basic part. In terms of the intermediate piece, that referral system, so allowing people not just to register themselves, but to spread the word, to help you spread the word and invite others is a more intermediate form of pre-registration. And then the most advanced form that we've seen to date has been interactive elements and events, such as some of the Japanese developers, including gacha within their pre-registration, such that before a game is even launched, players and pre-registrants can win rare items and have an advantage in the game from the very beginning. And so we've been talking about pre-registration for a little while. One of the exciting things is that we actually now are including it in Google Play. And so this is an example of Angry Birds 2, which ran a pre-registration program with us in the past month. And so this is for the game that launched a couple weeks ago. And so this is what the page looks like within the Play Store. Right now you can go and install the game, but 2 weeks ago this is what it looked like, where the game has a home within the Play Store even before it is launched, and you can simply pre-register. There are significant advantages in terms of doing that within the context of the store itself. And so one of the things that developers talked about with us was, okay, so we're starting off with more basic functionality within the Play Store, but developers talk about how they move from pre-registration to actually install conversion from that. And a really powerful thing to do there is to send a push notification at the system level to all those people who have pre-registered. And so this is what you're seeing now for everybody who had pre-registered for Angry Birds 2. This is a depiction of what that notification looked like. And so we've run a few of these pre-registration campaigns. This was a great quote from Glue, just talking about how pre-registration allowed them to capture pre-launch users from social and PR, and that combined with some of the other channels, including UA and marketing, gives them a big head start on Android. And so this is something where, just as launch becomes a bigger and bigger activity, just looking for ways to magnify that and amplify that is something we're looking to do, and pre-registration is one of those tools. And then finally on this topic for Cloud Test Lab, so here, Cloud Test Lab is a way for developers to test the technical readiness of their games. And so here, this is a Purify acquisition that we announced about a year ago. And so what you do here is just simply upload your game to the developer console, and that game will be automatically tested for the top 20 devices, top 20 Android devices worldwide. We're growing that base of devices over time. And so here you'll get a test of, like the bars at the bottom are saying, for each of those devices, whether you've successfully launched or whether you've failed launch or crash. And so in the event that you do have a crash on these devices, we'll do two different things. We'll send you a crash log, and then we'll also send you a video of the player experience for what that crash would feel like for that player. And so we provide you those things. This service is provided for free, and it will be rolling out in the coming months. Cool. And so on to the next part around user acquisition. And so store listing experiments is something that launched at Google I/O this year, and something we're very excited about. So when we think about user acquisition, there's a couple different elements. But for us, representing the store, one of the biggest things that we can do is improve the overall conversion from impression to install within the store, and giving developers more information and empowering them to make better decisions about the composition of their Play Store page. So here you look at the different elements of a Play Store page, and so you have your icons, you have your short description, you have video, you have screenshots. You have all these different elements that are all combining to make somebody more or less interested in converting from an impression to an install, but it's really hard for developers to know how to tease all these signals apart and what is having the biggest impact. And so Play Store experiments are allowing developers to do that within the context of the Play Store page. And it's great because there's a ton of data around this too. So the next several slides are around developer feedback on the features. And so PlayDots, the maker of Dots and 2Dots, they take a very analytical approach to their user acquisition. And so they have done separate testing for a variety of the different Play Store page elements. And so here you can get a sense for each of the different elements, so icon, screenshot, short description, and you can get a sense for like the variance of doing it very well or doing it very poorly and what impact you can have versus your baseline. And so here there's a couple different things where you can see their sense of the magnitude of making these changes. And so you can see that an average icon versus a good icon, the best icon, you can have about an 8% gain in conversion from impression to install. Similarly, if you have a really bad icon, you could mess it up as well. But what you see here is just the highest impact items tend to be the icon, the screenshots, and the short description. And so you can get a sense for what their experience has been in terms of testing these. And then I should also note too that this does multiply across too. And so if you have you can get that gain from an icon, and then you can multiply that across from a great screenshot and a great short description as well too. And so you can multiply those gains across the different Play Store elements. Congregate has been a great partner for us too, where Epic Skater was an example where the original icon was at the top. They ran Play Store experiments, and that yellow icon that you see down second from the bottom is the one that won. This is the example that we included at our I/O launch, as well as the example that we included in our launch blog post. And so Congregate has been great. They have really good testing approach. Let's see David here too. So, but one other cool thing is that they let us share data. Congregate's always great about sharing data, and so Global Assault here, we didn't really share the specific data within Epic Skater, but this was one where looking at just the icon against the control that we had here on the left with the one with the gun, and they did a variety of other tests against these other icons, and they saw that while the other two character-driven icons were not as good as the control, having the chopper here actually provided almost a 2x lift in the conversion that they were getting. The thing that was really interesting here too, I should specifically call out, is they had actually tested all of these icons on ad networks for conversion, and in those cases the control had actually won. But it was interesting and we're even just figuring out ourselves of, is that player population different within the context of the Play Store, and looking at what converts best for those people in that context versus doing something that's just more general purpose across an ad network. And so this is something where allowing developers to test within that context in which somebody will install your game is really powerful and can yield surprising results and big improvements. And so here was just a comment from Congregate just saying that even if you're increasing your conversion by 0.5%, that's something that's really material to them. And so when you see something that's 91%, you just get a sense of the magnitude and their level of excitement over that. And so it's you know, we definitely won't say that all developers having that experience where you look at Play Dots and they were saying, you know, the icon was adding about 8%, but we're consistently seeing developers just getting in here and getting access to data that they hadn't had previously and getting some really positive experiences across developers. One other thing to note too is that in the case of Rovio, where they had done a variety of tests also, and while you have a different context in terms of running experiments across ad networks, there's also a cost to that as well too, and so developers are spending in some cases, in Rovio's case, tens of thousands of dollars to run these tests, both in terms of working with a vendor and then running those campaigns. And so there's the benefit then of doing everything in situ in the context of the Play Store and having that happen more organically, and you don't need to bear this cost. And so there's a lot of really positive elements of Play Store experiments, and we're very excited for that going forward. Cool. Moving on in user acquisition. So search ads on the Play Store. So definitely something that developers are very excited about overall. Just what it looks like here is an example of, you know, it's not just games, but it's now opened up the games. And so if you search for sports games, for example, in the Play Store, you'll see Nordeus's top 11 that is placed there. So this is something, as I mentioned, a lot of excitement around it. It's actually rolling out to all developers and advertisers this month. So it's something that is very timely. There's smart targeting that's done within the system, and so if you've already installed the game and the developer's advertising, you actually won't see that ad. If for whatever reason your handset is not compatible with the game, you will also not see it. And so definitely thinking about, you know, even though it is an initial launch, that targeting is in place. And definitely seeing a lot of interest from developers. They're getting volume through the channel. For us, the CMO of Nordeus shared this great quote, which is saying that they're already seeing significant volume through the channel, even though it's still in a beta period right now. As I mentioned, it'll be ramping up very quickly. And then finally, on the user acquisition side, so we look at the conversion funnel. Developers are always asking us, you know, how can I learn more? Kind of related to the Play Store experiments where you can make changes within the context of your Play Store page. This takes a slightly different view of just looking at the waterfall or conversion funnel in terms of how do I know more across various channels about how I'm converting from an impression to an install to a payer. And so by linking your Google Analytics account to Google Play, you can get that information. You can understand how many impressions you're getting, how that's converting into installs, and how that's converting into payers across acquisition channels. And so this is something that we think has a ton of potential overall, especially in combination with the experiments, as I mentioned earlier. So this is not yet available, but this will be available also very soon. And so just to wrap this up, these are, we launched a lot of things, but I think it's important to step back and say, you know, pre-launch, we think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to develop more and better features to help developers in this area. Similarly, across user acquisition, there's things that we can do at the store level that have a ton of impact for developers overall. And so here, beta testing is available now. Pre-registration and Cloud Test Lab will be available soon. And then store listing experiments are available now. And then search ads and conversion funnel will be available very soon. So that is it for the presentation today. I think I have a few minutes for questions if anybody has any.
Sure. Thank you very much. God, this is very loud. I'll hold it right here. So your search adverts, what's the revenue model for sort of Google? Is it cost per impression, cost per install? How does it sort of charge back to the developer?
Less focused on that. So part of it is we've just looked at, everybody kind of zooms out, right? And they say, you know, Yahoo was a directory model and it just didn't win, right? And so people even just look at, for Google overall, historically search, where you have all these organic results, but there was a way for Google to allow advertisers to bid with relevant content, with search, with high intent. And so that was additive to the entire experience, right? And so that was something where, yes, you still want your organic results, but having commercial results there alongside of it is really valuable as well too. And so that's kind of the basic principle. We're less in the details, and it's more around, you know, how can we have just a better overall consumer experience within the Play Store by having this new channel. And then for developers as well too, there is an ecosystem, and so we're always balancing, what's the best for the consumer, what's the best for the developer ecosystem, and it's really more at kind of that level right now. It's less around the details of exactly how it works, and it's more around just how are we making sure that we're getting just more installs through the Play Store.
In the store listing experiment, you had the descriptions, right, as one of the variables. Did you guys internally do any analysis around how that changed the search organic discovery? So for example, a lot of developers use terms which are common to improve the discovery. Yeah. So is that a parameter that you search for, that you look for in the experiment?
So the question is, short description is an element of Play Store experiments, and are we looking at how that impacts kind of SEO or the ranking of a page within search? It's something where experiments is offered to the developer, and so it's something where if you're doing that type of analysis, it's just you have an ability to alter some of those things, but it's not something that we're focused on ourselves. Like a lot of the intent of experiments is to just provide more data to the developer to allow you to run some of these analyses.
A quick second question on the ads. I know you asked one. The ad, are you allowing or do you envision to give developers ability to bid on keywords for the ads?
Yes, that's what you're doing.
Thanks.
I got a question regarding the search ads. Does search ad placement remove you from the organic search, or can you possibly have double placement?
Yeah, it's part of it is it's early now, right? And so it would be unusual to have it show up both places, but it's still being worked out. So I don't know that there's a definitive answer to that question.
Okay.